It's time now for Countywide, a special presentation of Yavapai Broadcasting News. Join Paul David and Kyle Benedict as they talk with our community's leaders, newsmakers, and people in the know. You'll hear about the hot topics that affect all our lives in Yavapai County. And now here's today's Countywide.
Welcome to Countywide. I'm Paul David. Once again, great to have you in studio with us today, whether you're listening on the radio or talking on TV. Cottonwood Economic Development Manager and member of the Arizona Town Hall Board of Directors, Casey Rooney's in studio. Welcome.
Thank you.
I've seen you in here before, many times before.
Happy to be here.
We're not going to talk about Cottonwood Economic Development so much, but we are going to talk about Arizona Town Hall, and that's why you're here today,
right,
is to talk about Arizona Town Hall. And I mentioned before the show that I used to, I get emails from Arizona Town Hall each year when the meetings were coming up, and we do stories on those. So why don't you kind of refresh my memory and everybody else, maybe they don't even know what Arizona Town Hall is, but what is Arizona Town Hall?
Well, the Arizona Town Hall has been in operation for about over 50 years now. They've done 104 different programs.
Okay.
And what it is it's a private nonprofit, almost like a think tank. Okay. And what happens is twice a year, people are nominated and invited to go to one of these town halls. So the last town hall was on vulnerable populations, and that's what we'll talk about today.
Okay.
That was down in Tucson, and the date of that was April 27th through 30th. There were about 125 people that met, and they met for 3 days, and they talked about this topic, vulnerable populations. There are liberals, conservatives, there's Republicans, Democrats, Tea Partiers, you name it. They all come together.
Everyone's represented.
Everybody's represented.
Okay.
So imagine the whole point of this thing is after 3 days, you come to some sort of consensus. And I mean, you know how difficult it is to come to consensus on anything. Now, they choose a tough topic. So this one's vulnerable populations. The next one is on the economy. You know, how do you solve the issues of vulnerable populations in 3 days?
And have a consensus at the end.
And have a consensus.
Right.
So it's an amazing process of coming to consensus. Tara Jackson, an attorney, runs the organization. She's a brilliant lady, and she understands the concept of consensus. So all these people come together for 3 days. They always have a very tough topic, and by the end of those 3 days, you have all these opposite points of view coming together to reach a consensus on a topic.
How? When we can't get it done in a normal basis, how can we do it in 3 days at Arizona Town Hall? What's that process in there that makes that happen?
Well, you know coming in that this is all about consensus. Okay. You don't come to it without that understanding. And you debate back and forth, and you break up into groups, 125 people. So you break up into groups, and you'll have diverse people sitting around the table. And you not so much argue your point, but you discuss your point. And you encourage and educate each other on the topic. And you'll have, you know, with the vulnerable populations, you'll have people that understand vulnerable populations. So you don't normally have somebody, you'll get curveballs, but the curveballs are from educated people that understand the issue. So you come in with an open mind, even though you may have completely opposite thought processes. And with that understanding that you're going to come to consensus within 3 days. I mean, you go through this whole process. It's really a rigorous, tough process. The next one will be at the Grand Canyon. I went to one at the Grand Canyon, and I thought, oh, this is going to be really fun. The Grand Canyon. I'd never been there before, you know, 8 years ago. Right. So I thought, geez, I'm going to get to see the Grand Canyon. I saw about this much of the Grand Canyon, even though I was a bowling ball throw away from the Grand Canyon in my hotel all day long, starting at 7 o'clock in the morning, going until 10 o'clock at night. Oh, wow. You are working on this process. So it's not an average 7-8 hour day. It's a 12-hour day where you're working on this topic and you want to come to consensus. And that last day, there's, you know, negotiating and all this stuff going on at the last minute. Otherwise, you don't get to leave. you know, and that's how it all kind of comes about.
So why have Arizona Town Halls, and what do they do for us?
Well, first of all, we don't deal with fluffy topics. They're difficult topics that affect Arizona.
Okay.
You know, the economy, vulnerable populations, health, you know, just 52 of these, or 104 of these over 50 years. So that we've hit a lot of topics. And I'm sure that vulnerable populations have come up before, and the economy has come up before. But it's just a process that is so necessary because we need to educate each other. You know, everybody's got an opinion on, seems like everybody's got an opinion on everything nowadays.
Oh, sure.
But do they listen to each other? They get bombarded by media on TV, you know, CNN, you know, just like listening to the president last night talking about, you know, going in and, you know, cleaning up, you know, the Middle East. You know, and in my lifetime, we've never cleaned it up, and we keep dealing with it. But now you bring people together and perspectives, and then we put together a final report. I
was going to ask you, then what happens? Okay, so once that's done, then what does Casey Rooney do with this information?
Well, first of all, before you ever come to a town hall, ASU or U of A or some educated group of people put together a report on vulnerable population. So before you ever come to this meeting, you've got a report this thick that you're going to review. Then you review it, you come to the town hall, you discuss it, you come to consensus, and then they put together a final report. Then the final report needs to be distributed. So the report is used by, it gets distributed to the legislature, even though a lot of them don't come to the meetings because they're you know, affected by lobbyists and people like that to tell them what to do. We distribute that to the legislature. And then the reports are used in college curriculum. So the next generation of leaders coming out of our universities and community colleges, they're reading these reports. This is affecting their thought processes. So professors are using this in the education of students.
Who makes up Arizona Town Hall? Is somebody like myself? Could I be part of Arizona Town Hall? Okay.
You could. Normally, it would be somebody with vulnerable populations that has an interest in vulnerable populations. So you might have private nonprofits like United Way or Catholic Charities or somebody like that that would say, wow, I need more education in this topic. I need to go to this town hall. When it comes to the economy, you'll have folks like me there, economic development people, economists, people that are going to come and talk about the economy and how we can help encourage and straighten out our economy. So if somebody in your listening audience has a real strong interest in vulnerable populations, we're going to have a discussion on
October 2nd.
October 2nd, Thursday, October 2nd, here in Cottonwood at the Rec Center from 12 to 1:30 to follow up on this vulnerable populations topic. And then if we've got good input that can go into this final report on vulnerable populations, they're listening. They're traveling. There's probably 10, 12 communities they're going to go to. They always come to Cottonwood because we open the door and say, we need to be educated on this topic. And we've got educated people that want to give input on the topic that could potentially go into the final report.
Now, when you have an Arizona Town Hall, if I wanted to spectate on it and just watch, is that even possible? Or is it really formatted just for the folks that are working on it?
It's formulated for the people that are there working on it. But if we've got people in the community that have a real strong interest on the next topic that's going to take place at the Grand Canyon, they can put their name in the hat. Because there will be about 125 people. I would love to see other people with an interest on the economy showing up for the next town hall at the Grand Canyon. And if they would like to contact me, I'll put them in touch with the right people, and we could make that happen.
Okay. All right. We'll take our first break. Okay.
Okay.
Casey Rooney is in studio today. He's the Arizona Town Hall Board of Directors member. aztownhall.org is a good website to go to for more information on it. Stick around. Countywide back in just a couple minutes.
A single ember that escapes from a wildfire can travel more than a mile. That single ember can ignite and destroy your home or even your community. You can't control where that ember will land, only what happens when it does. Get Fire Adapted now at fireadapted.org.
My new mom and I have a lot in common.
The great outside.
We both love the outdoors.
So shiny.
That's not a flower. We both love geology.
Oh, look. An igneous one.
That's not a rock. And she knows a lot about wildlife.
A labradoodle.
That's not a dog. Hanging out has been kind of fun.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of kids in foster care will take you just as you are.
Up, college is hard. Down, those books are heavy.
My sport is football, but my passion is education. So every year I take promising high schoolers on a college tour to show them that higher education means a brighter future.
My name is Nnamdi Asamoah. I don't just wear the shirt, I live it.
You can be a reader, tutor, or mentor too. Take the pledge at liveunited.org/volunteer.
Do you wear this?
In the 1950s and early 1960s, the United States government conducted nuclear testing in the Nevada desert. The wind carried contamination throughout parts of Arizona, Nevada, and Utah. People living in the affected areas during that time are known as downwinders. 20 forms of cancer have been linked to downwinders, and free cancer screenings are available to qualified individuals. Over $1.8 billion has been paid out in compensation by the U.S. government. Please check the Downwinders websites for more information.
Welcome back to Countywide. Great to have you along. Casey Rooney, Arizona Town Hall Board of Directors member. We're talking about Arizona Town Halls, and you mentioned it several times now in the first half of the show, vulnerable populations. So why don't we get into that right now? What is vulnerable populations, and what kind of was discussed there with that?
Well, when it comes to vulnerable populations, I've got some notes here that I wanted to bring up. The poverty level wage is $8.80 an hour. The minimum wage is $7.90 an hour. So if you're working for minimum wage at $7.90 an hour, you are in the poverty level already.
Well, this doesn't make any sense at all.
It doesn't, but that's the way it is. Now, there's conversation of raising the minimum wage to $9 or $10 an hour. So if you go over $9 an hour, you are in the livable wage range, which still boggles my mind. Now, if you are one adult with 2 children, to be in the livable wage range, you got to make $25.23 an hour to be in a livable wage and raise a family of 2.
Wow, that
or
means
3. I mean, it'd be you and 2 children.
Mm-hmm.
You need to make $25.23 an hour, and that's tough depending on your education level and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So there's this. We have you see as you drive to work every morning, you see people walking the streets and the same people, and you know that they're vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's mental health issues, there's education issues, and those are major issues. But there's also not only those vulnerable people, but there's a whole lot of vulnerable people that are sitting in their apartments today.
Might be listening right now.
Underemployed or unemployed, that are one check away from being in a vulnerable population. They're already vulnerable, but when you lose that last paycheck and you can't pay your rent, what happens to you? You're a couple months away from being on the street. And there's a lot of people that are kind of in that position. And, you know, it's just kind of scary that that could happen to people, that they're one check away from being out on the street. 30% of the Arizona households would not be able to financially withstand an unexpected money crisis, and 40% of Arizona households are at high risk of falling into abject poverty. 45%.
That's huge.
So we have a major issue, not just in Cottonwood, but excuse me, throughout the state,
right,
throughout the country. And you know, from my perspective, being an economic developer, I have this real heavy laden burden of, you know, trying to encourage people to understand these statistics and you know, create jobs for these people. But you know, just creating jobs is not the total answer. You know, you got to have people that are educated, that understand, you know, how to work, that want to work. You know, so it's a major issue, one check away from poverty.
So what was the kind of the outcome of Arizona Town Hall? You guys sat down for 3 days and talked about this. Kind of what did you come up with as the consensus on that?
Well, they decided that the minimum wage, I wasn't there, but I've got the report. And this is the report, you know, just kind of an abbreviated version of it.
Okay.
But raise the minimum wage to $10.50.
Okay.
So we were saying $9, you know, below that, and you're in poverty. So, you know, raise the minimum wage. They talked about decreasing the prison population.
Really?
Yeah, well, when you think about it, I mean, Arizona has one of the highest populations of prisoners in the whole country.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
So imagine you were in prison. Hopefully it will never happen.
Right.
Hopefully it will never happen to me either. Yeah, right. That's a problem. But imagine you are in prison and you've got a family of 3, and now all of a sudden you have no income, you've got a family, you've just relegated those children of yours to poverty, potentially for the rest of their lives. You know, I mean, I don't know what the answers are. You know, it's easy for me to say reduce prison population, but when you got bad people out there, where do you put them?
Right.
But then at the same time, you put them in prison, you're creating poverty for their children if they're not working. So that's an issue. They talked about repealing Proposition 300, which if you can't prove citizenship, you have to pay like out-of-state tuition to go to college. So imagine you were raised in Arizona, you're from Mexico, you moved to the United States as a kid, but you're not a legal citizen. Now all of a sudden, Prop 300 comes along and says, we're not going to educate you. Or we are going to educate you, but you got to pay out-of-state tuition, which as a family person, it's hard enough for us to pay for our own children. Imagine you're living in poverty, and now you're told that you're going to have to pay, you know, double what everybody else pays to educate your children. That now relegates children to poverty. You kind of follow that?
Kind of keeps it going.
Keeps it going. Right. That's an issue. They talked about increasing the working poor tax credit. So if you, at the end of the year, want to make a tax deductible contribution to help with, you know, the poor people in poverty and that sort of thing, they want to increase that tax credit. Outlaw predatory lending practices. I think that's brilliant.
Yeah, I think we all understand that one.
I think there was an issue with that a few years ago, and you don't see payday lending places around as much as you used to.
Right, right.
But if you're borrowing money at 100% or 90% and you can't pay it back, you're now in poverty.
Right.
They talked about subsidizing public transportation. And we've got a public transportation system here in Cottonwood. And that is, from an economic developer's perspective, that's brilliant. Because when people come to town, I can point to those buses driving down the street and say, look at that. That's public transportation at its best. 12,000 people community has a transportation system. There's other communities surrounding us that can't put together a transportation system. So that allows, you know, people that might be in poverty to have access to hospitals, to jobs, to that sort of thing.
Right.
You know, another thing I wanted to bring up is imagine you're a homeless person or in poverty and you don't have the internet. You do not have a computer. Most jobs nowadays, to apply for a job, you got to go online. They don't want you just walking in the door and filling out an application. You go online and fill out an application. If you don't have a computer or the internet, you don't have access maybe to a job. You know, so those are the kind of things that they talked about.
Excellent. Let's take our second break.
Okay.
Casey Rooney in studio today. He is a board of director with the Arizona Town Hall. I'm Paul David. We'll be back in just a couple minutes.
The next 30 seconds can save you a lot of money. Just do your laundry in cold and stick to full loads. Auto-sleep your computers. Plug your gadgets in a power strip and switch it off when you're done. Headed out? Turn back your thermostat by 10 degrees. And drive sensibly. The more energy you save, the more money you save. Find other great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
In the 1950s and early 1960s, the United States government conducted nuclear testing in the Nevada desert. The wind carried contamination throughout parts of Arizona, Nevada, and Utah. People living in the affected areas during that time are known as downwinders. 20 forms of cancer have been linked to downwinders, and free cancer screenings are available to qualified individuals. Over $1.8 billion has been paid out in compensation by the U.S. government. Please check the Downwinders websites for more information.
Clean kitchen surfaces, utensils, and hands with soapy water. 1 in 6 Americans will get sick from food poisoning this year. Keep your family safer. Check your steps at foodsafety.gov.
Welcome back to Countywide. We've got just about a minute and a half left in the program. Actually, a minute left in the program. You wanted to make a couple of quick points real fast?
Well, yeah, I just wanted to, let people know that the path for getting out of poverty, one of the paths, is a good education. And that starts, before kindergarten, going all the way up through high school and into college. College may not be for everybody, but young people need to be educated on money management. Without a good education, without understanding the importance of managing your money, it gets, sucked up so fast you don't know what to do with it.
Right.
And people go into college, they acquire all this debt, and that's a whole nother thing that you can go into poverty even by being educated. So, there's a lot of issues revolving around this topic.
All right. aztownhall.org is the website. You can register there. You may or may not be able to attend the Grand Canyon one that's coming up on November 2nd through the 5th, but that's where you'd register for it. And then there's also an Arizona Town Hall outreach meeting that's coming up at the Cottonwood Rec Center on Thursday, October 2nd. What time was that again?
12 to 1:30.
12 to 1:30.
I'll be there.
Oh, right around there for lunch.
Yeah.
Casey Rooney, great meeting you.
Nice to meet you,
Thanks
too.
for coming in.
Thank you.
That's today's Countywide. We'll talk to you again next time.
She really?
Yeah.
She was freaked out. You can see it on her face.
You can see it on her face. And, you know, we sit down at a quarter till, so that gives me 15 minutes to get everybody just kind of, you know, this is who I am. This is how we're going to talk about this. And usually, if I can fill that first 20 minutes up before we go on the air, and I said, there we go. We just did the show.
Yeah.
That was 20 minutes to talk, just you and me talking. That's all it's going to be. And you could just see she was like,
she relaxed by that
She
time.
relaxed, and after about 60 seconds into the show, then we were just talking. She was fine. I kind of love seeing people come in when they get really nervous. I've only had 2 guests that left me hanging.
I'm sure there's psychology behind what you do, and you gotta, you know.
It's kind of uncomfortable. Ruben Howdegay was one of my first guests that I ever did on Countywide, and we used to actually do it in a little booth next to the newsroom over here.
When he was mayor?
When he was, yeah, he was mayor.
Yeah.
And we open the show, we get started, I ask him my first question.